is from your friend Walter Perkle. This is a Peckler. This is why people couldn't call themselves Indian, because this is a law that was done. The New Virginia law to preserve racial integrity. Mixtures of either these crosses with true Negroes should be designated as black, Negro, or colored. The term mix issue, and perhaps one or two others, will be understood to mean mixture of white or black. So they done said if they're mixed, they have to say they're mixed with white or black, with white being predominating. And this class should be reported with great care, as many of these are the borderlines and constitute real danger of race intermixing. The term Indian will no longer be accepted for these classes of who? These classes of Negroes up here. The Negro, Indian cannot be accepted for the Negroes right here. These Negroes up here can no longer be called Indians. The term Indian will no longer be accepted for these classes. Up here, the Negroes, the blacks, and the colored people. But must be applied only to those known to be pure Indian blood, and those mixed with white. So you can only call yourself an Indian if you're mixed with white. If there is a mixture of Negro, they must be classed as Indians, but as Negro Indians or mixed Indians. Japanese, Chinese, and other Mongolians, Malay race, must be designated as such, given the country of their birth of their ancestors. When crossing with white, the race mix should be Japanese white. If with black, they should be designated as Negro. But it may be written Negro Japanese. The Virginia Bureau of the Vital Statistics is in possession of marriage records for the states all the way back to 1853, arranged by counties and cities and years, but they are not indexed further back than 1917. Also, births and deaths, covering the periods of 1853 to 1896. That's when my great-granddad was born. He was in this area because he was 8 years old when he was put on. He got his Indian card being a Chickasaw freeman. He was 8 years old. If these can be properly indexed, they will afford an intangible source of reference for establishing color in many cases. I don't understand that purposes. If sufficient revenue is derived from the registration fee, it is hoped that the index, something will be done and addressed. So, they're saying here at the top, the new law, starting in, what year did they say? Let me go see when did they do this. Is it doing that? Why is it doing that? Oh, I see why it's doing that. Take that off. Take that off. Take that off. New Virginia law to preserve racial integrity. Senate Bill 219 to preserve racial integrity passed by the House March 8, 1924 is now law of the state, and this bill aims to correction and condition with only the more thoughtful people of Virginia known to exist of. It established that there are in the states from 10 to 20,000 possible more near white people who are known to possess an intermixture of colored blood. In some cases, to slight extent, is true, but still enough to prevent them from being white. In the past, it has been possible for these people to declare themselves as white, even to have courts so declare them. Then they have demanded the admissions of their children into white schools, and in not a few cases have intermarried with white people. In many counties, they exist as distinct colonies holding themselves aloof from Negroes, but not being admitted by the white people as of their race. In any large gatherings or school of colored people, especially in cities, many will be observed who are scarcely distinguishable as colored. These persons, however, are not white in reality, and nor by the new definition of this law, that a white person is one with no trace of blood of another race, except that a person with 1/16 of American Indian. If there is no other race mixture, may be classified as white. Their children are likely to revert to distinct Negro type, even when all apparent evidence of mixture has disappeared. The Virginia Bureau, did y'all just hear this? They have to have 1/16 of the American Indian. If they got more than 1/16, they are going to be considered Negroes. So the Negroes are the American Indians. Their children are likely to revert to the distinct Negro type, even when all apparent evidence of mixture has disappeared. The Virginia Bureau of Vital Statistics has been called upon within 1 month for evidence by 2 lawyers employed to assist people people of this type to force their children into white public schools, and by another employed by schools trustees of districts to prevent this action. Entered as a second-class matter July 28, 1908, a post at Richmond, Virginia, under the Act of July 16, 1894. And my great-grandfather was he was 8 years old at this time. My grandmother's died. I'm going to read this whole thing. In each case, evidence was found to show that either the people themselves or the connection were reported to our office to be mixed blood. Our bureau has kept a watchful eye upon the situation and has guarded the welfare of the state as far as possible with in with inadequate law and power. The condition has gone on. However, it is rapidly increasing in importance. Unless radical measures are used to prevent it, Virginia and other parts of the nation must surely in the time go the way all the other countries in which people of two or more races have lived to close contact. It says, with the exception of the Hebrew race. Why? Wait a minute. Complete intermixtion and small amalgamation has been inevitable result to succeed. The intermarriage of the white race with mixed stock must be made impossible. But it is not sufficient. Public sentiment must be so aroused that intermixture out of wedlock will cease. The public must be led to look with scorn and contempt upon a man who will degrade himself and do harm to his society by such abhorrent deeds. Wait a minute, what the Hebrews got to do with this? Now, this in America, they talking about Hebrews. Now, the public must be led to look with scorn and contempt upon the man who would degrade himself and do harm to society by such abhorrent deeds. The Bureau of Vital Statistics, the clerk who issues marriage licenses, and the school authorities are the barriers placed by this law between the danger and the safety of the Commonwealth. The task of the Bureau of Vital Statistics is a great one, with not a cent of appropriation to accomplish with it. There is a plan, however, by which it may be financed if the public will lead its aid. Thousands have applied for the registration of birth that occurred before June 14, 1912, the date when the old law went into effect. The new law further provides for the registration of all persons who desire it and who will make application for such registration of color and birth, remitted at the same time the fee of 25 cents for each applicant. Do not send stamps. These births will be permanently recorded and preserved for all time, and will be greatly valued for many purposes, such as to prove American citizenship when applying for passports and to go abroad, and for establishing and preserving the family tree for future generations. We will even admit for registration persons to live in Virginia but born elsewhere. Also, Virginians now living elsewhere, the family may complete its family tree by recording deceased ancestors or relatives. Each person will thus obtain full value received for a small fee. $5 people, $5. No, they 25-cent people. Married women should give both their full maiden name and the name of their husband. If 10 or 20,000 or more will register within the next few weeks, we will be able to provide print forms filing ease. Desk, type, writers, posters, clerk hire, and to begin vigorous statewide educational propaganda. After 90 days, those who do not register at once may do through our local registration at the same cost. Write at once for sufficient registration cards, instruction enclosed for reply, and stamps addressed envelopes large enough to hold 3 by 5 inch cards. A card announcing the registration will be returned as soon as possible. Lodges, lodges, patriotic orders, women organizations, and schools can act in bodies for the purpose of establishing true color of individuals for the future. Physicians and others who report births, marriages will also far as possible use the color terms accurately. A mulatto is the offspring of a white person and a Negro. A quadroon is the offspring of a mulatto and a white person. A octoroon is the offspring of a quadroon and a white person. Oops. Mixtures of either of those crossing with true Negroes should be designated as black, Negro, or colored. The term mixed issues, and perhaps one or two others will be understood to mean mixed of white and black races, with the white predominant. That is the class that should be reported with the greatest care, as many of these are on the borderline, constitute the real danger of race intermixing. The term Indian will no longer be accepted for that class. That class of who? Negroes and blacks. They will no longer be accepted as Indians. Will no longer be accepted for the class, but must be applied only to those known pure Indian blood or those mixed with white. If there is a mixture of Negro, they must not be classed as Indians, but as Negroes, mixed Indians. They must not be classed as Indians, but as Negro. So Indians cannot be classed as Indians no more. They must be classed as Negroes or mixed Indians. Japanese, Chinese, and other Mongolians and Malay races must be designated as such, given the country of their birth or their ancestry. When crossed with white, a race mixture should be indicated as Japanese white. If with black, they should be designated as black Negro, but it may be written Negro Japanese. The Virginia Bureau of Vital Statistics is in possession of the marriage records for the state back to 1852-3, arranged by counties and cities in years, but they are not indexed further back than 1917. Also, births and deaths covering the periods of 1853 to 96. If these can be properly indexed, they will afford an individual source of reference for establishing color in many cases. And for other purposes, it is insufficient revenue is derived from the registration fees. It's hoped that this index can be done. Address the Bureau of Vital Statistics, Department 1924 Law, Richmond, Virginia. An act to preserve racial integrity, be it enacted by the General Assembly of Virginia, that the State Register of Vital Statistics may, as soon as practicable after taking effect of this act, prepare a form whereon the racial composition of any individual as Caucasian, Negro, Mongolian, American Indian, Asiatic Indian, Asiatic Indian, Asiatic Indian, Malay, or any mixture thereof, or any other non-Caucasian strains. And if there be any mixture, then the race composition of the parent and the other ancestors is so far as ascertainable, so to be shown in what generation such mixture occurred, may be certified by such individuals, which form should be known as a registration certificate. I'm still waiting on Africans. Y'all, all of this, I still ain't heard African yet. I've heard Hebrew. I've heard Negro. I've heard Asian. I heard American Indian. I heard Asian Indian. Asiatic Indian. But ain't nobody on here called Africans. Not yet. Let's keep reading because I'm going to read the whole damn thing. So, as to show in what generation such mixture occurred, may be certified by such individuals, which form shall be known as a registration certificate. The state registrar may supply to each logo registration a significant number of such forms for the purpose of this act. Each logo registrar may, personally or by deputy, as soon as possible after receiving said forms, have made their own in duplicate and a certificate of racial composition as aforesaid of each person resident in his district who said so desire and born there before June 14th, 1920, which certifies shall be made over the signature of said person in case of children. Did you guys just hear this? Anybody born before then, they're going to go over their signature and they're going to go back and change their race. Did y'all hear this? So anybody that was born y'all. Now it's saying up here that all the people that were Indians now have to be called Negroes. Or mixed Indians. And the only way you can be called American Indian if you have white blood. But we still ain't seen no Africans in here yet. This is pissing me off. Because I saw on the census where my family was Indians. And then they changed them to Negro. I saw it on the census. In the 1890 something census, they were Indians. In the 1920, they got changed to Negro. I saw it. Just keep reading. He says, anywhere under 14 years of age, over the signature of a parent or guardian or other person standing in loco parentheses, one of said certificates for each person thus registered in every district shall be forwarded to the state registers for his files, and the others shall be kept on file by the local registrar. Every local registrar may, as soon as particular, have such registration certifications made by or for each person in his districts who so desires. Born before June 14, 1912, for whom has not on file a registration certificate or birth certificate, it shall be a felony for any person willfully, knowingly, to make a registration certificate false as color or race. The willful making of a false registration or birth certificate shall be punished by confinement in a penitentiary for 1 year. Now, do you know why our people stopped saying they were Indians? And they only told you at home. Because if you said you was Indian, what does it say right here? If you put on there that you're anything other than if you put on there that you're Indian, they said you will no longer be able to call yourself Indian. You will no longer be able to call yourself Indian. It's illegal. It became illegal. And you will get 1 year in a penitentiary if you call yourself an Indian. 1 year in a penitentiary for calling yourself Indian. Now you know why they told you at home and didn't tell y'all out in the public? That's why we got told at home what tribes we came from. But we couldn't tell you in the public because they would go into prison. They would go to the penitentiary for how long? They would go to the penitentiary for saying what tribe they came from. You could no longer state your tribe because they will put you in prison in the penitentiary for 1 year. And do you know what the 13th Amendment says? What does the 13th Amendment says? If you go to jail, if you go to prison, you lose your rights and you become a slave again. So they didn't want to go into slavery, so they could not tell out in public what tribe they was from. That's why they told in their house. Now this is an official document. Now you know why they were saying it at home but couldn't say it outside. For those people calling us pretendians, for those people sitting there, and you saw on this paper, I read it to you, y'all. I read it to you where it just said that if they were Indian, they had to classify themselves as Negro. And if they tried to put Indian on their paper, they would go to where? For how long? So they couldn't say they were Indians. They couldn't say they were Hebrew either because it shows you up here that the Hebrews were here. And you couldn't say you were Hebrew. It's right up here. You couldn't say you was a Hebrew, and you couldn't say you was an Indian, or you was going to prison, or you was going to prison, or you was going to prison. Now you knew why they were saying it at home. Now you knew why they were saying it at home. Now do you know why? And this is the health bulletin, y'all. All I'm doing is reading. See, I do research. And I go and read. And it tells you right here. They can no longer say they are Indian. They cannot use the term Indian no more, no longer will be accepted for their class. And I told you, I saw it on the paperwork. I posted it some time ago last year on my Facebook page. Where they said one in 18 something, they were Indian. And then the next thing you know, the same people with the same damn name had Negro on it. And these were my relatives. These were my relatives. Now, I don't know about other people's relatives. I'm telling you about my relatives. And I posted it on my Facebook page last year around about April. And it will show that I am Chickasaw, I am Choctaw, and I am Comanche Indian. And there is no other races in them. They don't even have no African in them. And then these people they ain't mentioned African not one time. And I'm reading all this. They did mention Hebrews though. They just mentioned Hebrews. And it says on here, now y'all see why they had to do what they had to do. You couldn't say you was a Hebrew. You would go to prison, to the penitentiary. You couldn't say you was an Indian. They were saying mulatto. Do you know that my uncles, when I was little, called me a mulatto all the time, me and my sister? We was called mulattoes. We was called mulattoes all the time. Not quadroon, not octrine. They would call us mulatto, and my granddad would get mad and go off on them. Where's the Hebrews at? And I'm going to go back to reading. I'm sorry, I get emotional about this. It's because this just brings up a lot of stuff that I went through growing up, seeing these things. These people could not say this because they would go to prison for saying that they were Indians. They had to put down that they were Negro. They had to put down that they were Negro people. They had to put down that they was Negro. Did y'all see that? They couldn't, Indian could not no longer be accepted. Had to put Negro down. Oh, wait a minute, skip. I'm gonna go read that. Let me go back to the page. I done got so pissed. Let me go back to over here reading this. Now it says here that if they register themselves as Indian or Hebrew, they would do what? They would get what? They would consider that a false registration, and they shall be punished by confinement in the penitentiary for 1 year. For each registration certificate properly made and returned to the state registration and local registry, properly mean their way, and returned, the same shall be entitled to a fee of 25 cents to be paid by the registrant. Applications for registration and for transcripts may be made direct to state register, who may retain the fee for expenses of his office. No marriage license shall be granted until the clerk or deputy clerk has responsibly assured that the statement as to the color for both man and woman are correct. They can't put Indian on there. They can't put Hebrew on there. If there is responsible cause to disbelieve that the applicants are pure white race, when that fact is stated, the clerk or the deputy shall withhold the granting of the license until a satisfactory proof is produced that both applicants are white people, as provided for in this act. And the clerk or the deputy clerk shall use the same care to assure himself that both applicants are colored when the fact is claimed. It shall hereafter, it says, it shall be unlawful for any white person in the state to marry any save a white person or a person with no other admixtures of blood than white and American Indians. So the white people can marry American Indian. For the purpose of this act, the term white person shall apply only to the person who has no trace whatsoever of any blood other than Caucasian. But a person who have 1/6 or less of the blood of American Indian, have no other non-Caucasian blood, shall be deemed to be white persons. All laws heretofore passed and now in effect regarding the intermarriage of white and colored persons shall apply to marriages prohibited by this act. For carrying out the purpose of this act and to provide the necessary clerical assistance, postage, and you only could be, how much? You have to be less than 1/16 of American Indian. In order to be considered white. And it says, all laws heretofore passed and now in effect regarding the intermarriage of white and colored persons shall apply to marriage prohibited by this act. For carrying out the purpose of this act, to provide the necessary clerical assistance, postage, and other expenses of the state's register of vital statistics, 20% of the fees received by the local registrar under this act shall be paid to the State Bureau of Vital Statistics, which may be expanded by said bureau for the purposes. All acts or parts of acts inconsistent with this act, to the extent of such inconsistencies, hereby repealed. Anything else after that is repealed after this act. Then you go over here. I guess this is an example. Mary Sorrells, Fairfield, Rockridge, Virginia. Dear Madam, our volume 1425-14089 is your certificate for the birth of an illegitimate child, Dewey Hubert Hartless, child of Martha Louise Hartless, born March 20th, 1924, of Fairfield. You state that this mother is white. We had occasion to write to you sometimes ago in reference to giving the correct color of birth certificates. We are warning you of the penalty in connection with making false statements. The Hartless family from Amherst County belongs to the mixed people Indians, white and colored. And under the new racial integrity law, cannot be classed as white unless this is someone entirely separate from this Amherst Irish Creek connection. They're what? Irish Creek. They're Creek Indians. They're Creek Indians. They're Creek Indians. We want further information from you as to whether she is connected with these people. If so, she cannot be classified as white under the new law. Write us at once. We want to again warn you of the trouble you are liable to get yourself into if you do not give the correct color. It is my duty to see that this law is obeyed, and I expect to do it. I am waiting for someone who violates this law to have them in court. If you want to be the first one, we will give you a chance. Yours very truly, State Registrar. Dictated, but not read. Now, she's a Creek Indian. These people are Indian, white, and colored. They are from the Amherst Irish and Creek Indians. Do y'all know who this family is in Richmond, Virginia in 1924? In 1924, this woman name is Miss Mary Sorrells Fairfield. She was given as an example, and they was threatened. And they knew that they were Creek Indians, and they were Negro. They were Negro, white, and Indian. Because colored and Negro is the same thing. They was Indian, and they was Amherst Irish Creek connection. This is an example of you gonna be the first to go to jail if you do not, if you put it in there like this. See what Abba be telling the child why we couldn't say anything? You wanted these people to go to 1 year penitentiary? It says 1 year for penitentiary. 1 year for the penitentiary for telling the truth about who they are. For telling the truth about their bloodline. They would go to penitentiary. And y'all want these people over us? I hate these people. I hate them. The new Virginia law is supposed to preserve racial integrity. And this bulletin right here, this was put in the health department. It was put in the health department. So when people went and read, we cannot say this, no, you can go to prison. Why would they tell? They telling in the house who they are. That's why our grandmas and grandpas was telling who we were, but they could not tell then because this woman just got threatened to be put in the penitentiary. They said, do you want to be the first? He says, I am waiting for someone who violates this law to have them in court. If you want to be the first, we will give you the chance. This is from the Bureau of Vital Statistics, the state health department, the board of health, saying they're gonna put you in prison for saying this, for this woman saying she's white. And he was like, we know that your family is Indian, white, and Negro, and y'all from the Amherst Irish Creek connection. But where's the African at? I done read the whole thing. There's nothing about African nowhere. We either call black, Negro, or Indians. Do you know what Indian means? Do you know what Indian means? Indos means black. The word Indos means black. Indian means black. But if you knew your language, you would know that. Indio means black. Same thing as Negro in Spanish means black. So when they were saying they were Indians, they were Indios, they were Indians, they're saying, I'm black, I am black, and I am from this land. I'm original from this land, and I have dark skin. Not one time did anybody say any of these people was from Africa. Not once. Don't you think they should have brought that up in the Racial Integrity Act? Huh? It was not brought up in the original thing. Huh? But they did bring up Hebrews. They did bring up the Hebrews. You can go look this up yourself. Now you know why they did not say in the house that they were Indians. What does it say? Why did they call themselves Indians? Why were we calling ourselves Indians? In the Dominican Republic, the meaning Indio evolved differently in primarily parts of the complex of racial and color-based identity system. The color category during the dictatorship of Rapo, whatever his name, Indio, was promoted as official skin color. Category on national identified cards to create a racial identity. distinct from blackness and whiteness. Black, white, as a result, Dominicans use Indio to describe a person mixed with black, white ancestry with an intermediate skin tone, not to be denied and not to be denied African heritage. Anti-blackness. Some critics, however, argue this issue term is anti-black was historically intended to distance the nation from its African root, especially in the relations of neighboring Haiti. Indio. In some places, it involved to describe a skin tone that is not light as white, but is not as dark as moreno. In these contexts, variations Indio Claro, light brown, or Indio Oscar, dark brown, are used to describe a range of skin colors. We was calling ourselves Indians. Yeah. Now do y'all see the truth? Especially, what are these? Moreno Negro Indios. These are Moreno Indio Negroes. Moreno Negro Indios. Baptizing the Indians. Look what they look like. Negroes. These Negroes were called Morenos. Las Morenos, Morenos, Morenos. So, y'all, these were Indians, and they were calling themselves Indians when we got Indians, 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 Indians. Let's go back. The term Indian. We were calling ourselves Indian, y'all. Will no longer be accepted for that class. We can no longer call ourselves Indians. Indians. The term Indian will no longer be accepted for that class, but must be applied only to those known to be pure blood or those mixed with white. If there is a mixture of Negro, they must be classed as as not be classed as Indians. They must be classed as Negro or mixed Indian. But they cannot call themselves Indian anymore. So, and I'm still trying to find this Hebrew thing. Hold on. He says, with the exception of the Hebrew race, complete intermixture and amalgamation has been inevitable results. The Hebrew race, still ain't talking about Africans, to succeed. The intermarriage of white race with the stock must be made impossible. They got to make it impossible. Probably was being bred out. It takes 3 generations to breed you out. You know that, right? But I'm going to show you this right here one more time. They was going to put this woman in jail. This woman who is Indian, white, and colored. And she was Amherst Creek connection. Never said African. Never said African. And how long she was going to be put in jail if she didn't stop what she was doing. Confinement in the penitentiary for 1 year. Now you see why the people stopped saying. And this was put at the health department. This was put in the health department. In the health department, y'all. This was all put in the health department. In the health department. You see now what's going on. Why our people were saying that they couldn't say that they were Indian anymore. Because it says right here, if you say you're Indian, being called an Indian, it's now illegal. Being the term Indian is now illegal. It's now illegal. And if you were Indian, now you're Negro, and now you're mixed Indian. You will be either Negro, or this. And if you say anything other than that, you will be put in the penitentiary for a year. All praise to the Most High Yah for the truth. And this, all I did was pull this up. These are the files. And this, all I did was put in there. Virginia Bulletin and the New Virginia Law Preserving Racial Integrity Act, March 1924. I didn't add to, I didn't take away. This is why the people could no longer say they were Indian. They would go to the penitentiary for a year.